Welcome to the Mindful Space. Today we're excited to have Case Kenny with us. Case is the Miami based creator behind viral inspirational note cards and the podcast New Mindset Who This. He's the founder of Practical Growth and the author of That's Bold of You. Case's journey from a pre med student to an advertising career and now a mindfulness advocate is truly inspiring. We're going to explore his unique approach to mental health and well being and learn about his mindfulness practices like journaling and gratitude. This is an episode you don't want to miss. Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Space. I am your host, Michelle, and today we have a special treat. We have with us Case Kenny. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming over, virtually at least. So, for those who might not know you, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm 35, just for age context. I live in Miami. I joke that I share my feelings for a living. That's kind of my little tongue-in-cheek way to describe what I do professionally. But it's actually pretty accurate of what I do. I mean, I host a podcast on Sirius called New Mindset Who Dis, written a bunch of books, do, all things mindfulness is my passion, bringing mindfulness to life in unique ways, in relatable ways, in simple ways, whether that's through the spoken word on a podcast, short 15-minute episodes. I've been doing that for 6 years, or through short, simple quotes. A lot of people know me from Instagram. I write those red
Yes,
Sharpie
I'm a
quotes.
fan myself.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's how.
I repost you all the time.
Thank you. Well, that's how people come to find me. So I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
Or through music, I work a lot in dance music and house products. I do a lot of consulting for brands that want to bring mindfulness to their communities or products. I do a lot of speaking. So really just kind of a story of being passionate about this topic that's kind of vague, mindfulness. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And bringing it to life in really practical human ways. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a trained psychologist or anything like that. I'm not trying to be a life coach. I don't have a one-on-one
Yeah.
paid community or anything like that. I just have a passion for words,
Okay.
the words we use to interact with ourselves and other people, the way that we could be more mindful of ourselves, the way we can listen to ourselves, and the way that we can then talk to ourselves. So, it's a gift to be able to
Mhm.
do all this for a living. But I really, really enjoy it, and it's changed my life, and it's helped some other people along the way. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah. No, I love it. And you said it yourself, right? You are doing so many things regarding mindfulness. How did you get into this path? Was it true that you were in pre-med and then now it's all business, mental health, mindfulness? How did that switch come around?
I mean, many, many moons ago, I was pre-med. Freshman year of college, I went to Notre Dame. I was pre-med for 2 semesters. Ultimately, figured out that wasn't for me. Then I changed majors, and I ended up majoring for 4 years in Chinese and Arabic, so 2 random languages. I've always been really good at
Yeah.
languages. It's like a weird thing. Was not good at pre-med. Just frankly, I just wasn't smart enough. I think. I was pretty dedicated. I was a pretty studious guy. Like there was no lack of hard work.
Uh-huh.
It just didn't click. And I was encouraged, luckily, by my parents who are very creative to just study what spoke to me, what I was good at, what I thought the world needed. There was an element of practicality there. I saw Chinese being the language of international business, Arabic, of
Yeah.
course, being highly in demand for government type work. So ultimately, I majored in those languages, worked in Shanghai for a little bit, kicked around some government type jobs, but ultimately in
Mhm.
2011 in Chicago landed in marketing. And then for about 12 years, I worked in advertising technology sales. I led a sales team for about 8 years, started as an account executive, left as a regional vice president. Um,
Look at that. All corporate.
yeah, oh yeah. I had a long, long stint of life of synergizing and circling the wagon and updating Salesforce. Like
Okay.
I have that background certainly, but somewhere along the way, I started the podcast, and not somewhere. In 2018, I started the podcast. I was 29, and it was basically just in response to my life. Like I really liked doing advertising sales. It was great. You can make a lot of money.
Mhm.
You become very confident in yourself. You become a great leader, a great manager,
Yeah.
build a great network. It was great. But somewhere along the way, I was like, man, I
But
don't. Yeah, I was somewhere along the way though. I was like, I don't really feel like the same person on the outside as I am on the inside. Like on the outside, I was like sales leader case, circle the wagons case, close the deal case, blueprint, follow through, do the thing. But on the inside, I didn't
Yeah.
feel like that same person. I felt like I was insecure and rushing, and doubted myself a lot. Um, so my solution to that kind of inside versus outside case was I started the podcast, and all the podcast was forcing myself to have a point of view, to say I'm not borrowing this. This is true to me. This is real to me. And I would just hop on a podcast and for like
Okay.
15 or 20 minutes beat up a subject to force myself to have a point of view on it, to prove to myself that it was mine, that I wasn't borrowing it. And
Okay.
the rest is history, because what I realized through that process was that is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of self inquiry, the art of putting your feelings on trial, the
Mm-hmm.
art of challenging yourself, making sure your beliefs are your own. And that was in 2018, and now it's 2024, 600 episodes later. And somewhere along the way, I left the job to do this, wrote a couple
Yeah.
books, started posting on social media. But it started from that place of just like wanting to be the same person on the inside as
Yeah.
out.
But isn't that beautiful? The fact that you just kind of discovered your own path, you switched paths multiple times, and then you ended up landing in something that truly makes you happy. And, humble enough, I wrote a couple books, have social media, almost 1 million followers. Gotta give yourself some credit,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I appreciate that. I mean, I'm definitely proud of myself. It's not easy, frankly. It is. I
Yeah.
think of the probably the two most difficult career paths you could choose for yourself would be an author and being a podcaster. Like, it's very, 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 very
Yeah,
difficult. For as much as there's a lot of
it
podcasts
is.
nowadays, which is fantastic, to make a living from it is very difficult, for a variety of reasons.
Mm.
And then to make a living from an author is more feasible now than ever, but it's still very difficult. So,
Yeah.
I work hard. I do this all day, every day, but I love it. Like, I did it for
Yeah.
3 years before I did it full time. Didn't make a penny. I didn't make a penny
Okay.
from the podcast for 4 years. So like, um,
Oh, wow.
it's something that I'm proud of myself for
Yeah.
doing, but it's
It's
something I would do
hard.
regardless.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you started doing it as a side hobby to improve yourself and really look within. So the fact that 4 or 5 years, whatever, coming to now you can make money off of it, it's just like the plus plus, right?
Yeah, and it also it's taught me a lot. Like, to now that I'm
Yeah.
fully in and I do this full time, the money you make 6 months from now is from the work you do today. So like, I'm always thinking in the future, if not a year from now, right? So like, and
Mm-hmm.
especially as an author, where my sales cycle is 18 months to 2 years to write a book, or maybe a year, some 14 months somewhere in there. Like, if I want to make money next year at this time, I already have to have started writing my next book, or thinking about building my
Yeah.
next project. Or luckily I've got my hands in quite a few things, but it's all about forward thinking every single time.
Yeah.
Um, so definitely learn
Well,
that.
that's where the what is it, like the business mind comes back,
Yeah.
right? Like marketing this, sales.
Yeah. It all
It's a
serves a
great
purpose.
combination.
It
At
all,
least you have that background. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It was funny because I remember when I told my mom that I was going to quit my job, and she didn't mean it like this, but she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to throw that all away." And she didn't mean it like that.
Mhm.
But you're never throwing, anytime you reinvent yourself or change a career, you're never throwing it away. You could always use it in a different sense. So I find that to be particularly true in my life.
Yeah, no, I must agree with you. A career change, a life transition, there's no age to start over. Especially if you find yourself in a place where you're not ultimately yourself or you're not happy. And society has that, right? They want to throw back or project back onto us and say like, "Oh my God, you're going there? Why? Or why are you doing this? But you're so good with this job." It's like, well, it's not that I'm ungrateful for it, but at some point you have to kind of follow your instincts and be true to yourself and do what you love, right?
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah, I
wrestled with the
agree.
decision for a long time because I was good at sales. And I joke that sales made a man out of me, like in a good way, not like a toxic man, but like it gave me confidence. It did all these great things for me. And I
Okay.
made a lot of money. Like, you can make a lot of money in technology sales, selling technology. What does that
Yeah.
mean? It was great. It was fantastic. Um, but yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it was like, why not try? Why not at least try? and
Mm-hmm.
if you're familiar with the ikigai concept, like the Japanese Venn diagram of what you're good at, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and you find the
Yeah.
overlap of those things and how it is so difficult for many people to find that sweet spot in life of what they would do regardless if they were getting paid, but they can get paid for, and the world needs it and make the world a better place. I had found that, and I was like, man,
Yeah.
I think I would regret not trying. And then also timing, like a lot of life is about timing. And for me, when all this kind of happened and the transition happened, it was during COVID, and I was running a sales team from home,
Oh,
and I had a lot of free
yeah,
time. I was like, man,
perfect.
maybe this is the time to do it. Just it just proved it to me. So I think there was a matter of patience, certainly practicality, but then also just being like,
Yeah.
let's do it. Anything's possible in 2023, 2024, and haven't looked back. And then I moved to Miami, and now
Here
being
you
in
are.
Miami, it's like anything is definitely possible. Miami is not real life. Miami is not the real world, so it's inspiring to be down here too.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely different. And we'll get to that. But yeah. Where did you come from? Where was you living before
Chicago,
Miami? Oh, yeah.
very different.
Nothing like
Yeah,
Chicago.
no,
Yeah, very,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, so now we move forward. We're here. How do you think your viral inspirational the note cards that you do, they contribute to people's mental well-being?
I,
What do you think it's your
yeah,
contribution?
I think it's as follows. Like I'll like when we think about the word mindfulness, right? It means many different things to different people, and that's great. There's no right definition. There's no wrong definition. I think a core part of it is mindfulness is the art of being present in how you feel, accepting how you feel, examining how you feel, and evolving through it. Right? It's a great explanation, and I think a
Mm,
lot of wellness and therapy too, which is amazing. It's a focus on listening to yourself, understanding yourself, which I think is great. And I think it's essential in life. But I think there's a missing component that sometimes we overlook that perhaps my writing can help provide, which is mindfulness is not just the
mhm.
art of listening to yourself, it's the art of talking to yourself. If we only listen to ourselves, I think we're doing a huge service to ourselves. But I don't know about you,
Yes.
if I turn off my brain and I sit back and I just listen to myself, there's a lot of garbage up there. There are a lot of untrue,
Mm-hmm.
unhinged, unfair thoughts. So if I'm only listening to myself, I'm going to get a lot of feedback that is just noise, that's just static. The way to counter that, the way to prove to yourself that you're listening and evolving is to talk back to yourself, to remind yourself of the things you've learned, standards, boundaries, wisdom, the things that life have given you.
Yeah.
So when I then turn to Instagram, for instance, and I write a 12-word little quote that is so simple using human words, it fills that gap. It reminds people that the key to happiness is listening to yourself and talking to yourself. And there's little things I do
Mm-hmm.
here and there. I make sure that they're short, they're simple, they're relatable. I think my role is to help people feel seen, and I think being seen
Yeah.
is tremendously valuable for mental health, particularly when we're more isolated and lonely than ever. So I think a combination of relatable content plus content that helps you speak back
Mm.
to yourself. I arm people with mantras, basically little affirmations that they can keep in their pocket, literally or
Yes.
figuratively, and it helps people feel seen. And I always write it from a perspective of how can I help people feel seen in circumstances that are maybe hurtful, but we can evolve through them by talking to ourselves. So that's always been my
Yeah.
go-to when it comes to writing.
And you are so right. We have so many thoughts coming in, right? Well, in and out all the time. And I always tell my clients, you got to choose very carefully what you believe from yourself. Like you can't just, it's same as emotions. Emotions come and go, thoughts come and go. We have so many thoughts, right?
Oh yeah.
Thousands and thousands a day. You have to choose the right ones because there will be some toxic insecurities, and if you're there just like you said listening to all of them, then oh my god, you'll drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
Then you'll get anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, and there's been a ton of research in psychology and even like what's it called, untethered soul. Like our thoughts are not
Mm,
representative of ourselves. Like a lot of them originate subconsciously out of our control. So if we're believing everything we feel and
yeah.
everything we think, we're setting ourselves up for a mess. So we have to learn to listen, of course, listen to everything, but then counter it with truth,
Hmm.
with facts, with learnings. And it's also like, a lot of time we think in life, we think that, you learn through experiences, right? Which is true, right? Like life
Hmm.
gives you experiences, you learn through the experiences,
Yeah.
experiences turn to wisdom, and that guides you in life. But we're skipping a step again. Like we have these assumptions about mindfulness is this, we learn through this. Well, yeah, we learn through experiences, but more specifically, we don't learn through experiences, we learn by reflecting on experiences. You don't learn just because you went through something, you learn because you went through something, and then you
Yeah.
reflect on it honestly, and then you talk to yourself to remind yourself of what you learned. So like there's like these little things that I think we miss sometimes just because we're rushing, and that's it.
Yeah.
That I think if I can help people remind themselves of the need for practical introspection followed by practical speaking to yourself,
Yeah.
I think we could all kind of rise together.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And even with, you know, the experiences, everybody has different experiences, but also everybody has different perceptions of the same
Yeah.
experience, right? You can be resilient and grow out of it, or you can have those negative thoughts. So experiences are very important. And how do you deal with them and how do you confront them? But I definitely agree with everything that you say. And I love that you have that mission because it's working.
Well, thank you.
Can, I wanted to ask you, can you maybe share a crucial moment, whatever comes to mind, that a moment that you had to embrace uncertainty that maybe impacted your own mental health journey?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, I definitely point to kind of the start of the podcast. I think for
Hmm.
a long time I felt a sense of uncertainty just overall. Like I think it's very easy to get like into your mid 30s and still feel very uncertain about yourself. And not in like a something horrible happened and I felt uncertain, but just because like we can spend so much of our lives
Yeah.
borrowing other people's truths and timelines and expectations that we never take the time to form our own point of view. So I feel like my 20s honestly was just all uncertain, and in a good way too, right? Because it's
Hmm.
great to be uncertain because that means that
Yeah.
you're leaving room for all this goodness and you're not just closing the doors and putting blinders on. So I would say that. I
Yeah.
would say certainly leaving my job was big, and I say frankly, there's not a day that goes by now that I'm not a little uncertain. I'm acutely aware of
Yeah.
things come and go. Like my popularity comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes, and that's
Yeah.
a burden that anyone carries when they're reliant on other people to like them or to find value in what they say or to take the time to
Yeah.
listen to them. So I'd say every day it's a battle with me of if I write 5 posts on Instagram and 5 out of 5 don't really get a reaction. Yeah, I'm like, oh man, have I lost the sauce? Like, is this not it? So
Did I lose my spark?
but for real though, I think that all the time, and I take that in stride because social media giveth and taketh away. Like it's a gift to have it.
Hmm.
So for me to get upset when it
Yeah.
doesn't reward me, it's kind of a silly thing for me to get upset about. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think about it all the time. But I think for me, it always comes back to I could feel uncertain, but as long as I'm saying yes to the question of am I proud of myself, I think I'm good. 'Cause I think being proud of yourself, as
Yeah.
cheesy as it sounds, like, oh, be proud of yourself. It's like it's more practical than that. Being proud of myself means did I get up and do what I'd say I would do today? And I'm pretty smart. Like I know what I have to do to be successful. So did I do it? Yeah. Then okay.
Yeah.
Then that insecurity, that doubt, just let it sit there. It'll take care of itself. As long as every day I'm proud of myself, I'm doing the things I said I was going to do. I'm pushing myself. I'm challenging myself. I'm doing things different if I'm not getting the result I want, then I am good.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat delusionally optimistic about life, and I think it's a good quality because it helps me avoid those circumstances where a
Yeah.
couple bad days or a couple bad weeks or even a couple bad months doesn't convince me otherwise. It's just about continuing to do the things I said I would do and having the insight to know what those things are, to have a point of view on what I need to do.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, to answer your question,
Yeah.
every single day is the answer to how often I feel a little unsure.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's completely acceptable. And I don't think you're alone. We all have uncertainties, daily basis, yearly, monthly, especially when we start something new, we're trying to get out of the what we know, right? And going into the unknown. And like you said, you're always developing something new. So uncertainty is always going to be there. When it comes to feeling uncertain or feeling this unease or having a bad day. How do you deal with that? What kind of mindfulness practice, if you have any, do you practice on a day to day besides
Yeah.
writing? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure writing can be sort of like a mindfulness practice for you.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, a lot of it comes down to just mindful affirmations of what the heck I'm doing here. Like, I think the problem we get into and the reason that we spiral from having bad days is we've aligned our goals in life with follow me here. We align our goals in life with adjectives. Like adjectives. Literally, I spend a lot of time thinking about words, right? So our goal in life is often an adjective. I want to be happy, I want to be successful, I want to be confident, I want to be fulfilled, I want to be rich, whatever. And I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I want those things too, but I don't voice them in that way because as humans, if we say my goal is to be happy, which is the ultimate human goal, who doesn't want to be happy? But if I say that's my goal, then we also do the human thing of when we're not happy and we're not happy a lot, we start to get very anxious or depressed, or we start to think that we're not a happy person, that we won't be happy, that we're the opposite of happy. And as much as, right, it's not just because of that goal that we're feeling that way, a lot of it does come down to the words we use. So, like, I'm big on not using adjectives to describe goals. I'm big on using verbs, things that I can control. I can't control happiness. I
Okay.
would love to control happiness, but happiness is, first of all, what is
Mm-hmm.
happiness? Second of all, happiness is
Yeah.
definitely random. It could be taken away in an instant. So, what are the things that for the most part can't be taken away? What are the things I do? So I'm really big on aligning myself with like a statement of, on days where I feel insecure, that's okay because I'm the kind of person who, and then I remind myself of the things that I'm doing. Same, similar to what I was just saying about
Okay.
being proud. Like the things that I say I would do, those are verbs, those are phrases, those are statements, those are things that denote movement. And as long as I'm doing them and I've thought through why I'm doing them, then I can stick out some bad days because I'm still doing them. And the bad days don't define me. The adjectives don't define me. It's what I'm doing. And I know that's easier said than done because a lot of times, you could keep doing something and you don't get a good
Yeah.
outcome, which is why we need to challenge ourselves of why we're doing them. But I'm like a crazy verb person. Like I'm not a big like manifest your life guy because to me that's just I
Uh-huh.
don't know what that means. I know what people are saying when they say it, but I would rather just get down to brass tacks and say, I'm the kind of guy who, for instance, practices gratitude every day, finds time to be still every day, who writes every day, or whatever it is that would make me happy.
Yeah.
So like reverse engineer it, and as long as I'm doing those things, I'm confident that it will deliver me in the direction that I want to go. Not necessarily the outcome, but at least the direction. And if I'm pointing myself in the right direction, then I'm all good.
Yeah. And like you said, mindfulness has so many different definitions, and I feel like everybody has their own mindfulness practice, right? And it's what works for you, what makes you feel better. And I just love how you put the verb and adjective thing. I never thought about it that way, but it makes complete sense because to be happy is so broad, right? You want to put an action into it, like we were just talking about choosing your thoughts,
Yeah.
right? That's why some people say choose happiness. It's like, okay, well, we're all gonna have bad days, right? We're all gonna feel shitty one day. That's normal. It's what we do with it, what other stuff we're doing to make us happy.
Yeah.
So
If
the
if
balance,
if
right?
we
It's all
could
about
if we
balancing.
could truly just choose happiness, then everyone would be happy. But we can choose to do things
Yeah.
that hopefully will make us happy. But that's called delayed gratification. And as a very impatient person myself, I struggle with that. So like I understand why these things are like
Yeah.
easier said than done, but as a practitioner of these things in all forms, podcast, music, writing, everything, it's like I've seen it come true time and time again. And it
Yeah.
just requires a step back and like a balance. It's weird because it's like a balance of being active and lean forward, but also passive and patient. And those things I think at a lot of times are at odds with each other. So yeah, I mean, another definition to add to the mix would be
Yeah.
like mindfulness is balance. It really is balance. Um, so if
Yeah.
we could find that, I think
It's so
we're great.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the yin and the yang,
Yep.
right? The good and the bad and everything. Gotta balance it out. When so you wrote a couple books. When you were writing those books, what was your ultimate goal? Were you trying to get your message across regards to mental health? Or what were your expectations? Did you really think that people were going to be this receptive to your content?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't know. As a delusional optimist, I'd like to think, yeah, why wouldn't people, as long as I could write something good and show people that it's helpful. I always thought, if I could do that, then yeah, I think something good will eventually come. Might not be book one or book two or year one or year two. It could be year 10. um I always
Hmm.
believed in the craft. I don't really didn't believe in just like doing it just to do it or just to be an author. But like for instance, I wrote this book last year that's Bold of You, and it's done really well.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that thing, I was like, I didn't just sit down and like, I'm gonna write a book. It's like, no, that book was written from 5 years of podcasting. Like that book is a summary of things that I've talked
Oh,
about on the
okay.
podcast for years and years and years. And I would just listen to people and see what resonated with people, and then I would sit down and write more about it. So, you know, there's a business lesson in that, I suppose, as well.
Yeah.
It's like listening to your potential customers. Like it wasn't just sitting down and just writing what necessarily I wanted to hear,
Okay.
although some of it was. Like I always say the podcast is for me. Like I talked about, I started it for myself to be the same person on the inside as I was on the out, and it still is that purpose. So anything I talk about on the podcast is still for me, but I have to think bigger than myself. How
Mm.
can I make people feel seen? How can I find a universal thread amongst
Yeah.
everyone? And in writing that book, I think I found something, which again, we're talking about the power of words. Like that's Bold of You was about the power of the labels we give
Yes.
ourselves or that other people give us, and to challenge them as being fair or unfair words. So I think just as someone who's in words all day, every day, that book just felt really natural. It felt like the thing that I needed to write. And now, like I said, I'm writing another book that'll come out in a couple
Yeah.
months, and it's the same story. It's like this is something that
Nice.
I've, feel drawn to, that I know other people are drawn
Okay.
to as well, because anytime I talk about it, it gets a lot of engagement and feedback, and people wanting more. So
Mm-hmm.
listening and talking,
Yeah.
um, mindfulness.
Yeah. That's amazing. Couple months. I can't wait to see it out. And congratulations on that.
Thanks. Yeah, it's
I
work
wanted
in
to,
progress.
yeah, yeah, it's fine still, I'm sure you're going to meet your goals. I'm sure you're going to get it done.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
going
I
to be
will.
great. So,
Yes.
can you, well, you're everywhere, right? The books, the Instagram, Sirius XM. What opportunities and challenges do you see in in addressing a broader audience in regards to mental health? Do you
Yeah.
see any stigma barriers?
Yeah, I do. I think about this a lot actually, because 80% of my audience is women, which is great. I've learned a lot about women over the years, which I think
Yeah.
helps me in my relationship. That's fantastic. But I do want to talk to more men, um, for
Okay.
the practical reason of there's more people out there who I think could benefit from the message, but then also the more specific practical, which would be I think men need to hear it even more. Like the reason that I think a lot of women support me and listen and share is because it's just more socially ingrained. Women feel more empowered to share these
Mm.
quotes that are a little bit more sensitive, and men just don't do it. I get a ton of DMs from men who are like, "Yo, dude, this shit's awesome," but they don't share it vocally.
Private.
Yeah, it's private, exactly. But they're
Yeah.
getting just as much value from it. They're just not throwing it on their stories and sending it to their homies. And I don't necessarily think we have to get to a place where men are doing that necessarily. Who am I to say culture roles or gender roles? I don't know, but
Mm.
I do think men need to hear these messages just as much as women, if not more, in a sense, on the line of vulnerability and honesty and being men of character. I think we're in a character crisis. Um, so yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I am trying to engage
Yeah.
with more men. I think for
Okay.
me, it requires some new things from me, like just a different voice, like more
Yeah.
addressing
Like
men.
make it more relatable to men.
Yeah, more relatable to men. Maybe some harder language. Like, I write from a very soft tone, and I like doing that. Like, I consider myself just a dude's dude. I'm a regular guy, and I like
Okay.
the ability to have contrast, to be a regular guy, but to use soft language. I think that's freaking sick. But I think to meet men where they are, it requires a slightly different tone. So, the book after this book, I'm writing it from a slightly more, I don't know, mature, masculine point of
Yeah.
view, which I think will be really great. So working towards that goal. But even let me, like up until like last year, it was like 90% women, and now it's 80, which is great. We're kind of just shifting the
Really?
sand a little bit.
You're getting there.
Yeah, we're chipping away.
Baby steps.
Yes.
Yeah, but I do agree with you.
As I sit here
Once
with my
again, I
butterfly
feel,
mug, as trying to write
but
for men. We gotta work on that.
but I think if you keep doing what you're doing, eventually more men will want to join and log in and just be open to more softness. Because I feel that stereotyping men's mental health and society, where it tells men don't cry and men are not emotional, I think that's shifting a little bit, or at least I've seen it shift a little bit. Might be wrong, but we're not there yet.
I think it's
So
shifting big time.
the
Like
fact that
I
yeah.
really do, because like anytime I do things in person, like I lead these journaling events at Soho House. It's usually mostly guys, for one. I spoke at this event the other month in Austin. It was mostly men. So like I think if you give men the chance to show
Okay.
up, they will. And I think about my relationship with my friends, my guy friends, super open, super vulnerable. So I think we're there.
Okay.
Certainly, I think it's maybe social media is lagging behind a little bit, or just like social habits are lagging behind a little bit.
Yes.
So we'll get there.
Like we don't post about
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
but we're following you.
Yeah, as long as
So
they're
hopefully the
like
percentages
it's actually
will be
it is
50-50.
crazy. Like an anecdote about like being a creator. It's like sometimes your biggest fans, literally the people that you have helped the most, and that have like bought every single book you've ever written and anything they could buy from you have no idea who they are because they never like your content, they never comment, they never DM
Yeah,
you. You have no idea who they are, but they're there. And when you do talk to them, they're
they're
like, "Yo,
there.
dude, I've listened to 650 episodes of your podcast. I've bought every single book. I've come to
Wow.
every event you've ever hosted." Like that happens a lot. So I think we can't always just
Really?
react to vocalness of followers because it's not always realistic. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the silent ones are
Yeah.
the ones who you're helping the most. And I like that fact.
Yeah. As a social media, I don't want to say expert, but a social media participant, have you received any hate as well?
Oh, of course, all the time. Uh,
Really?
I
Okay.
will say it's far less than any like influencer because I'm not an influencer. I am not an
Okay.
influencer. I am an author who has an
Yeah.
Instagram page. I'm not trying to be likable. I'm not trying to trigger people. I'm not trying to create entertainment. There's a reason those people get hate
Mm-hmm.
because they're trying to rile people up. I don't do any of that. So for the most part, I'm kind of untouched a lot of the time. But I write about
Okay.
emotional topics, so people DM me all the time, and they'll be like, "You're wrong. Like all women are crazy or all men are
Oh,
cheaters," and
wow.
stuff like that. I remember I got this one really, really angry email from a random guy. This was from a guy, and he was like, "F you." My girlfriend listened to your podcast and broke up with me as a result. I don't know why they were bringing me into the mix. I've gotten those, but then I got one the other
Oh,
day.
Lord.
I got a DM from someone the other day, and all they said was "F you." They just go "F you," um, and I forget
Have a
what I
nice
said
day,
back.
sir.
I said something back to it. Not like I said. I like either liked it. I think I liked it. I think I liked it. And then the next day, I saw he responded back, and he was like, "Hey man, sorry, I was just having a really bad day." Like so, like it just
Yeah.
sometimes people just want an outlet, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be that guy for
Yeah,
you.
maybe you just hit that trigger
Yeah.
with
Oh,
that
for
one
sure.
quote.
Yeah, and like to be honest, like my content is purposefully triggering, but not in like a negative, like let me trigger you way. Triggering in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
sense
yeah,
of like
yeah.
I want to
Emotion
yeah, I
wise.
want to
Yeah.
find an emotion that we can all relate to, and that is likely an uncomfortable emotion, so that we can show each other how to evolve through it. So like all my quotes are the
Yeah.
same for the most part. It's like negative experience, positive outcome. Negative emotion, positive determination. Like it's like a character arc in a movie. It's the same way in 12 words. And a lot of people get triggered by it, as I suppose they will inevitably if they haven't found a way
Yeah.
to heal. So it's all good. Um,
Right.
it's all
Can't
good.
do much.
Yeah,
It's all good.
it's all good.
He forgives you, whoever was that.
Yeah, he
If
was
you're
just having a
listening.
bad day. And if you want to curse me out in my
Yeah.
Instagram message requests folder, have at it if it helps you.
I just think it's crazy how people do that because they would never do that in person. I feel like people are just covered or protected by social media, right? And they just freely say anything they want to say. But if you had me in person, you wouldn't
It's
even
it is wild
dare.
though. I do think about that a lot, and that's why I'm like I
It's
refuse
wild.
to be an influencer. I'm an author with an Instagram page because it's
Yeah.
weird. Because like once you become like an influencer, you're no longer a human. You're a character, and that's why I feel that people
Mm-hmm.
find the freedom to treat you as this fictional person that they could verbally abuse. And yeah, social media
Yeah.
can be very toxic,
That's
so we
insane.
have to use it right, especially like Twitter. Like Twitter is insane, but for the most part, people
Yeah.
love my content and they share it.
Yeah.
Like the number one metric that I look at on my posts isn't likes or comments, it's sends, who they share it with. And
Like the reach.
it's hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands on my bigger posts or tens of thousands on the other ones. And like
That's
that's what's dope
amazing.
because that means they're sending it to friends.
Yeah.
They're sending it to their friends.
Exactly.
Mission accomplished.
That just means your message is coming across and it's spreading
Right.
worldwide. So what else can you ask for,
Yeah.
right? It's not even about the likes. That is true though, because I scroll through a lot and I don't like all the time. I'm just like,
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't have
I'm the
time to
same
like
way.
or reply.
I am a drive by kind of guy. I very rarely
Yeah.
engage.
Is there any last message or like a core wisdom you want your audience to take away for after today's conversation?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, the one that I always say because it's just big for me. It's like the whole idea that we're talking about here is allowing yourself to reinvent yourself, allowing yourself to find the identity that's true to you, the timeline that's true to you. This whole thing. The quote that I came up with a couple of years ago is that there's no right way to live your life, but there is a wrong way, and the wrong way is to think that there's a right way. Basically saying that like if we're always assuming that there's a right way and that other people have it and you don't, and that you need to go out and emulate a happy person, a successful person, a hot person, just emulate, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure. There's so much freedom in saying that the right way is the way that I decide is the right way, and the only way to do that is through mindfulness, is through yourself. So I like reminding people of that, both in the practical of you can literally do anything for a living. I mean, if I'm not living proof of that, I don't know what is. I share my feelings for a living. But also like there's no right way to be single. There's no right way to be in a relationship. There's probably no right way to be married. There's no right way to raise kids. Like there's the way that works and is true and is compassionate that you've decided is that way because you've done the reflection and you've decided as such. And I think that's great. I think freedom is power, freedom is peace,
Yeah.
but we have to do the work to embrace it, and just realize there is no right way, and that's a great thing. It's a fantastic thing because it gives
Yeah.
you the freedom to reinvent yourself and make a decision for yourself and to start over if you feel inclined to not do the things that I find so often we regret, which is sticking out a path because it's expected of you, or doing the same thing over and over again because
Oh
you
my
already
God, yes.
invested time and you don't want to start over. So I think finding freedom and realizing that the
Yeah.
right way is the way that you figure out for yourself, I think is a gift.
You nailed it there with you feel like you invested so much in something that you can't like do the
Yeah.
switch. Like you said, you didn't really waste your time. You maybe something served you at a point in your life and now it doesn't serve you anymore, right?
Yeah.
And there's no shame in that. There's no shame in reinventing or switching careers or relationships, anything, right?
Agreed.
Whatever works best for you and serves your purpose.
Agreed.
I agree. Well, this has been a lovely conversation. I want to thank you again for joining us. I wish we could talk again for another hour. Maybe we can come back after your new book
Yeah. I'd
is
love to.
released
Yeah.
so you can talk about that
Yeah. That'd
one.
be great.
That'll be amazing. But thank you. And thank you everyone for watching or listening. Don't forget to tune in. We have new episodes every week and leave us a comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think.